In the last lecture, we added this navigation, and I also mentioned that you can change the way you use your paths here. Right now we use //servers, or even with this more complex notation, we have /users as the first element. Now what happens if we just use servers here like this and just use users like this? Let's save this without deleting /. Now if we click there on our links, you still see this works absolutely fine, nothing changed. Now let's go to our servers component template file here. And for now, let's quickly add an anchor teller element here, where we also add a router link, where I add servers again. Reload page would be a fitting description. So on this servers component, I now added this router link where I basically want to make sure that I stay on the servers page, which I'm already on. So if we go to servers here, we see the reload page here. And if I click it, you see we got an error. This error here occurs because it doesn't find a route which is servers/servers. Now this error won't occur if on the servers component, I turn this to /servers, so to an absolute path. It was a relative path. Here, if we now have our console still open and I click reload page, nothing occurs here, no error occurs, because now it simply navigates to localhost 4200/servers, as you can see down there. And if we turn this back to a relative path, the difference was that now it tries to go /servers/servers. So with a relative path, it always appends the path you specify in the router link to the end of your current path. And important here, the current path depends on which component you're currently on. That is why we could remove that in our navigation, where we also use relative paths, because that is in our root component. This component is not loaded through the router, so this root component always sits at localhost 4200/nothing. So this is always at our root level, which is why we can use relative paths here too. But one layer below that, once we loaded a route, for example the servers component, this page is only loaded if we are at /servers. So if we add a relative route here, this will now get appended to this route we're on, so it will try to load servers/servers, and therefore it gives us an error in our case because we haven't registered a servers/servers route. Now, of course, using relative paths inside of active components, active routes, might be a nice thing if you have nested routes. Right now, it will only break the app though. Now, you can also use relative paths with // at the beginning. This is the same as having nothing there. And you can even navigate around like in a folder directory. You could add // which means go up one level, and then add this to the path here. Now, if we do this inside of our servers component, you will see if I hover over this, now it again only tries to load /servers, and therefore we don't see an error. Because now it first goes back one level, which basically is to just our root path, so it removes one path, and important path depends on the route you're on. So if you were on servers/something, and this would load this component, it would remove both. So this does not necessarily only remove one segment here, it removes the currently loaded segment, you could say. So in this case it removes this, and then adds /servers again, which is why this works. And this is how you can navigate around absolute paths with a / at the beginning, which will always get appended to the root domain, relative paths without a / or with // which means added to the currently loaded path, or .. and you can even add more of them, to say, well, go back one path, go back another path, so always seen from the currently loaded component on. And if that is something which is not 100% clear, you will see it throughout its module, but also feel free to play around with it, add your own routes, add some nesting, add more complex paths, and see how this works out. But for now, let's continue with our application. I will remove this reload page link, and let's enhance this a bit more.